Hello and welcome everyone to our LinkedIn Live. Today we are joined by Pinky. So Pinky set up Net Women a year and a half ago now, and Net Women is an online community which supports ambitious women who feel alone or isolated in their careers to help them promote themselves, increase visibility, and also help with professional development. Firstly, I have to say, I absolutely love your business. I can openly say, I felt this way in the past. I know plenty of other people who have as well. And Net Women adds so much value to so many females in the workplace. I'll let Pinky introduce herself properly, but we're so lucky to be able to have the chance to hear her take on the Imposter Syndrome. And we're going to have our own little Q&A with Pinky as well. So please comment in the chat with any questions during the session, and we'll ask all of them at the end.
Fabulous. Hi, Sarah. Hello, everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for that introduction, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here. We're having some tech issues and we couldn't actually get my presentation on here. So I'm going to speak and just chat and tell you a little bit about what I do, why I do it, and what brings me here today. So firstly, I want to say a massive thank you to Sarah, because without Sarah, I wouldn't be here talking with you at Women in Tech. We've just recently partnered together with Women in Tech, netwomen.co, and we're really excited to be here. So thank you for that. And secondly, I would like to say thank you so much for joining us today, because even though I can't see who's on here right now, I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you've got any questions at all during my chat or anything that you want to ask about imposter syndrome, feel free to put that in the chat or the comments. And, I am not used to presenting without the PowerPoint presentation. However, I'm going to make it work. Just flying, really, by the seat of my pants today. So let's just see what happens. I'm based in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I'm originally from England, as you can tell by my accent. And I work with ambitious, perfectionist, successful women. That's a bit of a mouthful. And what I found time and time again is a very similar kind of outcome, where women tend to have this anxiety, the imposter syndrome, and limiting beliefs. And it's how we can overcome these beliefs and break the glass ceiling. So if you haven't ever heard of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, there's three kind of things with that. So the neuro part is obviously the way that things are going on with your mind. The linguistic part is the language. And the programming part is obviously the way that your brain is wired. And I use those techniques, and also use hypnosis to help people overcome some of their barriers and limiting beliefs. I started doing this, 10 years ago, working on myself, and I realized that after a very difficult situation that I had personally, it impacted every area of my life. And I realized that I needed to change that. And the way that I did that was working on myself and investing on myself. And then I started going to networking events, and I started walking into these events, which were predominantly pale, male, and stale. And that was in 2015. So we're going back, let's say, 6 years ago, thinking to myself, there's got to be a way around. There's got to be a way that women can come and interact with each other and feel like they're in a safe space and never to be judged. So I actually think that the pandemic has highlighted the lack of diversity in all sectors, not just in tech. And what really made me understand more of was that if we work together to help and support each other and inspire each other, we can all make a difference and close that gap. And I think there's a huge reservoir of untapped female talent that is being wasted. So we want to change that at netwomen.co and encourage women to get visible and promote themselves And also our aim, our mission is to have that 50-50 gender split at the top, and also to have a level playing field across the board. And I think being women, we all understand what that means. And that might not happen in my lifetime, but I know that if we all work together, we can leave something behind for the future generations. And that is really my why, because I see my son and I think, actually, this is the change that we need to do to make this actual mission that I have happen. And I can only do that with the support of other incredible women. And so that's what netwomen.co stands for. And that's what we're here for. And that's how we help people. So really, we're talking about imposter syndrome today. This is I would say, the topic that I'm most passionate about. And I'd like to really cover a few topics. How has imposter syndrome shown up for you? And also what the difference is between self-doubt and imposter syndrome, because they are different. So I'll be covering that, why, just surface level coping strategies won't work. It will actually make it worse. And some standard coaching might work temporarily, but actually working on yourselves by doing a course, etc., isn't enough. Having done my research with women, not just in tech, we all struggle with imposter syndrome at some point in our lives. So if you're sitting there thinking, is it just me? Then you're definitely not alone, because I've certainly experienced it firsthand at several points in my life. And I like to think that I'm reasonably competent at my job. And even though those feelings of inadequacy occasionally come in and they creep in, they shouldn't have, and they shouldn't have a big impact on your day-to-day life. So that's the aim of today, is to help you understand it a little bit more, to understand why this is so important. And I want to give you some examples of some of the clients that I've worked with as well. So the first thing is the definition of imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is when you are confident. So no one's questioning the fact that you're confident. You're confident, you're successful, but somehow you convince yourself that you aren't good enough despite the external evidence. And if you've ever had that feeling of, I'm going to get found out, or I feel like a fraud, or someone else knows what they're doing and I'm not experienced in this area, then you have experienced imposter syndrome. Sometimes being criticized is just too painful. So we just stay in our box, we stay at what we're doing in our comfort zone and never push ourselves out of it. So apparently, the number here I found is 70% of women struggle at some point in their lives with imposter syndrome, but apparently it's 75%, according to some of the research that has been pulled up with women in tech. And I've also found that 58% of C-level executives within the tech industry suffer with imposter syndrome, doubting their ability to lead and succeed. And it seems that the higher up the ladder you go, the more lonely it is and more crippling imposter syndrome gets. And there's a few triggers that I wanted to share with you. And this year, particularly because we have been struggling a little bit with isolation, with loneliness as well, these things trigger things like stress and anxiety and fear as well. And these can affect your performance issues at work, the fact that you're now working from home and you're not working in maybe in a team environment, and you're remote. And this can translate into all areas of your life. And I believe that there's an assumption that's often projected onto people. And I was having a discussion with someone yesterday who's in the tech industry, that if you look young, or you're a woman, or you're physically small, or you're softly spoken, or if you're a woman of color, or you're just a little bit different, when you ask for feedback or you are raising a concern or performance, etc., sometimes it's not your lack of confidence, it's just the way that you are. And simply, it's just a request for ways to help you develop or grow personally. So personal development, to help you up level, maybe that's what it is. And sometimes the root of imposter syndrome in tech is when you see someone's proficiency in technology or a concept, and then you start feeling a little bit inferior because you compare yourself with the next person and you start doubting yourself, and then you feel like you're scared that you don't have that knowledge that that next person has about that particular concept of technology that they know. And so I wanted to talk to you about self-doubt or the lack of self-confidence. So again, going back to, it doesn't mean that you aren't up to the job. If you've experienced this, please pop a comment in the chat, let me know. I've found that if anyone who has experienced this feeling of, not feeling like you deserve it. So for instance, award-winning author Maya Angelou had far more success under her belt, but she worried that her success was a big ruse. And she was always saying, even though I've written 11 books, each time that she wrote a book, she always thought they're going to find out. And I've run a game on everyone and they're going to find me out. It's not just writers. That was just an example. It's being in any sector, particularly male-dominated sectors, makes you more susceptible to imposter feelings. In fact, the internet is actually full of imposter confessions from people in all areas. If you check it out, you'll see it in STEM, in every area, despite the amazing qualifications, the accolades that women deserve and they get, women still worry about being unmasked and feel like a fraud or an imposter. If you've ever had these feelings, or if you know what I'm talking about, again, let me know. Being a female leader in a male-dominated world really does require strength and confidence, and we need to have the courage to believe in ourselves when nobody else does. And strong female leaders is someone who is self-aware, someone who can transform people's attitude by aligning their purpose and their meaning. And for me, leadership is the ability to focus on elevating others and being humble. This enables female leaders to unlock their potential and other people's potential and promote effective cooperation between teams. So imposter syndrome isn't self-doubt. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Imposter syndrome is the gap between who you see yourself being and who you think you need to be to lead and succeed. And that is the difference between imposter syndrome, where you feel like you are not enough and you don't deserve it. It's more of an I am statement, whereas a self-doubt is more I can't. And if you can't do something and you feel like you can't do something, that's self-doubt. And we all know, and I always quote this, that 80% of success is mindset and the rest is skill set. So if you know what I mean by that, please send me a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on this. If you're in development and you are a programmer, obviously you need to be consistently learning and open to new ideas and practices. So when you're in a new or an unknown method, there's different languages and different tools that are needed. And it's obviously easy for someone who's a developer to feel inadequate. And that's the same, and it's exactly the same if you're a CEO. You need to constantly adapt and change and up level and sometimes reshuffle ideas. I know I've consistently had to do that, going from being an optometrist to then owning Mindset by Pinky and then becoming an entrepreneur and CEO and founder of netwomen.co. I've had imposter syndrome creep in at several stages when I've up leveled or thought about different things or changed my plans or ideas. It seems to pop up when I'm jumping out of my comfort zone. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that your brain is trying to keep you safe. And I'm sure you've all heard about that, and I'm not going to go into that too much depth, but it is your brain just telling you not to do it because of the fear. So that brings me on to fear of judgment. Fear of judgment with ourselves and fear of being judged by others. So you will know this in yourself. If you're self-aware, you'll know that you'll have like an inner voice that pops up sometimes, like an inner critic that pipes up and takes over. And that itty-bitty committee, that voice, that berating, belittling ourselves that comes up, that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve it, that you can't charge what you want to, that they might think your work isn't good enough, and there are more experienced, qualified people out there. And as women, we put ourselves down before we even start. So I want to ask you now, if you've ever done that, if you've sat there and put yourself down and not maybe taken a job on because you felt like you weren't good enough or you didn't deserve it, or maybe you just didn't even put yourself forward in the first place. I want to ask you, how do you talk to yourself? What language are you using? Because we've got two voices in our heads. We've got the one that's kind, that we talk to our best friend with or our children with. And then we've got a critical voice that we use in our head. And that voice seems to be the one that's the loudest. And I want to just really hone in on that language. What language is it that you are talking about? So if you've read the books and you've listened to the podcasts and you've done some online courses, you've maybe really keen on affirmations, you might still feel that imposter syndrome. And the reason for that is because there's an element that's within your brain where this is happening on a repeated basis because you're not self-aware of that voice and not changing it. So with NLP, there's an element of changing the mindset. And the fear and the anxiety can show up in different ways. So it can show up as 4 Ps. And so it can be people pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination, and paralysis. So if you, for instance, ultimately fixating on criticism from yourself will mean that you're going to hold yourself back. It doesn't help you grow your business, grow your audience. It doesn't help you do the work that you really love. And that momentum you get from doing great work is only about you thinking about yourself and thinking about, actually, I'm going to smash this and I'm enough and I deserve this. So when you change that language, that helps you then achieve what you want to achieve. And that also leads me to step 2, which is embracing that value that you produce. So what is it that motivates you? What is it that you would like to progress on, rather than what it is that's keeping you wrapped up in that imposter syndrome, in that kind of a cocoon of negative thinking and negative thoughts and judgment. One of my clients who didn't feel like she deserved or wasn't good enough to apply for a promotion didn't, because she didn't feel like she filled 100% of the job requirements on the application. I'm sure you've heard this story before, when you procrastinate and never apply, she missed the opportunity. And then that just leads to paralysis of not applying in the future. And that's really a case of the 4 Ps. And then when you get the job, there's that constant feeling of a fraud, you're not up to the job, someone's going to find out, and you don't deserve it and you don't belong there. I'm sure many of you have experienced that before. And also being a solo owner or a founder of a company, if you've got a big project or you've been given some work, it sometimes isn't ever good enough to send out, or to send out a price to the organization, which is people pleasing, leading to perfectionism, then procrastination, and then paralysis. And there's that fear, isn't there, that you got this feeling of, I just got lucky, or I'm going to get found out. And that is the true cycle of imposter syndrome. One thing that I've learned is that you have the power to make a choice to change your life. So I think that's really a key point here, that we don't believe in ourselves enough to break that cycle. So the majority of women, or the people that I've worked with, have noticed that underlying theme is feeling like you don't belong, you're feeling out of place. And there's a deeper level of limitation there that we put on ourselves. And that's when the inner critic pipes up, that you don't deserve it, you're not worthy, you're going to get found out, you're not enough. This leads to low confidence, low self-esteem, self-sabotage. Then that impacts every area of your life, and you can suffer mentally, emotionally, and physically, and start playing small. If you don't believe in yourself or feel worthy of what you have, then you will keep getting stuck. If you are struggling with any of these things, please feel free to write a comment or reach out to me. I'm happy to have a chat with you. When I was talking about traditional coaching, surface level coaching, which is that I can't do something, that's when things like affirmations, gratitude, and doing online courses help, even if you do a miracle morning, meditation, journaling, etc., etc. All of that is helpful. The area where imposter syndrome will help you, where you can overcome imposter syndrome, is where you need to shift that deeper level of thinking, which is that internal referencing system. So you have a system of maybe a habit, a story that you keep telling yourself, that limiting belief. It keeps cropping up and coming back unless you do something about it. It holds you back from breaking that glass ceiling and putting you out of that comfort zone. And the fear of feeling like you're a fraud will keep returning. If you have these challenges, please let me know in the chat. I'd love to help you. Overcoming imposter syndrome is all about working on your inner self and changing that old story that you keep telling yourself. So in my opinion, I believe that as women, we're much more capable than we think we are. And it is usually the negative inner critic that holds us back from breaking that glass ceiling and stepping into our power. Surface level coaching will help, but it's the inner work that is done when you really need to overcome imposter syndrome. So things like rewiring. So talking about those old stories, we change the way we think about them, reframing them, tapping into the subconscious mind, which I can do with the hypnosis side, recreating your internal referencing system and creating your killer mindset from that is definitely beyond coaching, and it's identity level shifts and working with clients energetically, clearing those stuck patterns and creating transformations. I just wanted to share a couple of tips before I finish. Things like remembering why you started, what makes you jump out of bed every morning. That's really important. Number 2 is reframing your thoughts. The stop technique is a great technique to use. You need to ask yourself, when you get a negative thought, stop yourself, maybe change the way that you're thinking about it. Look at reframing what you're saying. So check it and make sure that it's a fact. So 99% of the time, that voice that's come up isn't a fact. It's normally just a thought. So think about checking that, change it, and you have a choice, remember, of the way that you think, the way that you feel, and therefore the way that you act. And number 3, we accept the fact that there's a certain amount of criticism. It's inevitable. So have some fun with it. Take it as feedback, reframe your answers, maybe say, I'm not sure about that. Let me research that and get back to you. Humans are much more complex than software systems. So reframing feedback is a great way to start. And also make a list of wins and celebrate them, and find a community, surround yourself with like-minded people, which brings me on to a couple of things. The online self-learning 6 modules that I'm doing at the moment, which I haven't got the link to, but I will put it in the chat in a moment. And also netwomen.co and the collaboration that we're doing with the women in tech, which I wanted to bring Sara back on the screen to talk about. But netwomen.co is helping women succeed globally, helping you get visible through coaching, mastermind groups, and networking. There is a huge diversity gap in the tech industry. And if we don't do something about it in the UK, we will get left behind. There is no surprise that women and minorities are underrepresented. And we know that. We know that 5% of leadership positions in the UK tech sector are women, and 4% of the UK tech sector is in the BAME side of things. So many companies are still not where they need to be, and they're not making diversity a priority. So I think supporting us and supporting a community just to drive better representation and just really thought leadership, diversity of thought, and better products, more profitability, better innovation, all of that, and help women step into their power. Sara, I'd love to bring you on. Oh, just one more thing. Remember to believe in yourself and surround yourself with like-minded people, and also get someone that can support you through this. You can't do it alone.
Thank you so much, Pinky. That's really useful. And someone on the chat has said, hi, Pinky, some of the points you've raised include the fact that people judge you because of their bias related to characteristics. How do you get past your nerves or fears if presented with this issue? Isn't it their issue and not yours? Good question.
Good. Yeah, very good. Good point. Like, I love that. I love the way that you've reframed that. I don't know if it was a comment or if it was a question, but I like the fact that you've reframed it and said it is about, it's not about you, it is about them. I think as well as women, we do tend to judge ourselves. So I think my main point is that reframing your inner thinking is really important. And you've done just that there. So that's really important. Good point.
And then if we go to some other questions, so someone said, are there any exercises that you could demonstrate for us today, sort of for anyone who's due this afternoon potentially to be jumping out of their comfort zone, whether it's a big meeting or something else that they've got planned and they're sort of feeling like that imposter? Is there anything today that you can give them as a takeaway of something that they can do before they sort of jump straight in?
Yeah, I think first thing to do and think about is your breathing. The first thing that usually happens when you're panicking or you're feeling nervous is that you'll stop breathing or you'll be very shallow in your breath. So remember to take a long in-breath, pause for 4, and out through the mouth for a longer breath. It doesn't matter timing-wise, it's just make sure that the out breath is longer. Secondly, make the presentation about them, not you. That's very important because that then takes the pressure off of you onto them. Thirdly, imagine you have a superpower, and that superpower is the ability to present with confidence without nerves. You know what? I just want to go on a personal level here. If you told me that I had to do a presentation today without my PowerPoint and just jump on, right? And just go, right, you've just got to just do it. Just go for it, just wing it. And there's no cues, nothing. I would have gone, I just can't do it. Yeah. And today, when I jumped on, none of our tech was working, and we decided that we were just going to go for it. And it is that mindset of reframing yourself and thinking about, you know what, I'm making this about my audience, and it's about helping you. It's not about me. So change that around, and also shrink your audience down. If you have a massive audience and you've got this big, scary audience in front of you and all these eyes looking at you, that's going to freak you out. Just think about it and just shrink it down in your mind. Close your eyes and shrink it down in your mind, shrink down the audience. And when you see a smaller audience, immediately that presentation, or when you're standing in front of them, if you're doing it live, will just make it so much easier. It will just take that pressure off you. And just try and focus on your breathing. One of the things that I absolutely love about NLP is that we teach breathing. It's one of the best ways of actually controlling what is coming out of your mouth. It will make things so much easier if you forget something. I mean, I forgot loads of stuff there, but I'll just, just go for it. You'll be absolutely fine.
Definitely. And I think you've done a really good job without the presentation. That was really good. I think it was at 1 minute to 12. And we just thought, you know what, let's just try this. And you've done a great job. So someone else has said, why is imposter syndrome always put in the same bracket as women more than men? Like, we never really hear of men with imposter syndrome. Why is this? And can men have imposter syndrome?
Yes, men can have imposter syndrome. And it's usually the higher up the ladder they go, they're more likely to have it. I think the stats are 52% of C-level executives have imposter syndrome. That's men and women. That's quite a high number. And I think women generally, I don't know whether it's generational or societal, or combination of both, but I think we've always had that self-limiting belief where girls can't do certain things, but boys can. All of those kind of negative, but also limiting beliefs that we have had instilled in our minds. Or, as a girl, you can't possibly go on that climbing frame, you might fall and hurt yourself. Whereas if it was a boy, you'd be like, yeah, come on, you're being really clever and strong and brave, get on there and do your thing. And I just think that encouragement hasn't perhaps been there for many women. I know I'm speaking from personal experience and from previous clients that I have had as well. I don't know, Sarah, you can probably relate to that as well.
I can definitely, and I've got a brother as well. I've got an older brother. So I think that, when I was growing up, I used to be a bit of a tomboy because I wanted to follow him, follow his friends, but I just wasn't as confident. It was always that, oh, don't do that. You could fall, you could hurt yourself. It's completely that. You're right.
Yeah. And that carries through. So those stories that you've had and those, that builds up a story in your mind. And that's what happens when you're an adult. So that keeps coming back. And this is what I was saying about the elastic band, those old stories that we have ingrained in our minds need to be changed, that we need to believe in ourselves, that we can do what we want to do. And rather than saying, what if I fail? What if you fly? What if you do great? Switching that story around.
And then sort of finally, I mean, if anybody's got any more questions, pop them in the chat. But otherwise, I think a lot of people feel judged. And I think it's so hard. I mean, I know that, I felt this as well. And I think, how do you overcome that feeling of, feeling judged and feeling, it's not necessarily just feeling that you're not good enough, but it's thinking, what is somebody else thinking about that? And is it the right thing to do? Am I going to be perceived right? Is that going to then affect my career progression going forward?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. And I think I touched on that about being judged and fear of being judged when you walk into a space, especially if you're a young woman, with a low, soft-spoken voice, and you're thinking, okay, first of all, I feel like a complete imposter here. I don't even fit in here. You're walking to a room of men. and immediately you start feeling the judgment from other people. I think what you need to remember is to stay in your own lane, to remember where you have come from, what you've achieved in the space that you have. Remember that you are qualified enough and you know enough and you're confident enough to step up, and you are an expert in your own area, in your own field, and that the people in the room have obviously taken you on for a reason. There is a reason behind it, and you're there for a specific purpose. So everybody, I think, at some point will feel this judgment for sure. But what really helps is really talking to yourself in a positive, optimistic way, and changing and reframing that thinking behind the negativity that pops up, that berating and belittling before you even get there, which we do quite a lot of us women. It really helps to nip that in the bud in the first place.
Good. And, you know, you do a course, it's a 6-module course on how to really create that killer mindset. And is there anything that you want to add in terms of, you know, how that works for anybody today who's really interested in joining you and sort of hearing more?
Yeah, so if you want to know more about that, what I'll do is I'll drop it in the chat. Can I do that on the LinkedIn video? Yeah, I'll do that. So it's basically for you if you are ambitious and you want to get more out of your life and you feel that you're probably struggling with these issues that I've covered today. It's 6 modules, it's self-led, so it's videos, it's PDFs, it's downloadable journals. You have access to the Net Women community. It's about really creating those career goals for yourself and creating the career that you dream of. I mean, like I said, I've been there myself. I created it purely because I knew that I wanted to help women just like you. So if you're struggling to get clients, you're not making money, maybe struggling to get a promotion, you want some practical advice on how to build that dream career. And if you are asking those negative questions, like what if I can't get clients? What if I can fail? What if I can't make the money? Then this is something that you need to look into. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So before we finish, Pinky mentioned at the start that we're so happy to announce that Women in Tech UK and Net Women have formed an official partnership. So we're going to be bringing to you a women's networking event on the last Tuesday of every month. The details are both on the Net Women page, the Women in Tech platform, and we're also going to be sharing to our socials very soon. So we hope to be able to meet so many of you there, and it's going to be so great, especially after, you know, the last year, to really reconnect with so many other women, whether you're a founder of your own business and you don't have anybody else to speak to and you want that community, or whether you're in a position at the moment in a company and you really want to tap into people outside of that company. We're excited to meet you, and we hope to continue the conversation there.
Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. If you're wondering what to expect when you get to our event, it's on Zoom. We will be having a main room chat, so I'll be introducing myself, Sarah will be there, and perhaps a few other women in tech ladies, and we will then go into breakout rooms and have chats within those rooms, and it's usually one-to-one chats for about 6 minutes, and it's fun, it's informal. I'd probably say to you, just think about having a pitch ready or something about yourself, about how you can help people. And then we jump back into the main room and we reshuffle the rooms as well. And then we finish after, I think it's 60 minutes we do it for. So yeah, it's great fun. You get to meet lots of people in the room.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. And we had actually got one more question. It's actually a really, really good one. So I'm going to throw back into that before we wrap up. And it's from Isabel, who said, how do we combat this in an organization as leaders or directors? How do we develop a nurturing work culture where everyone feels empowered to speak? Really, really great question.
Yeah. Wow. That's a big one. How long have you got?
10 minutes, 11 maybe.
I think really that's a massive question. I think for me, being a female leader is tough, especially when we are in a male-dominated world. You look at everything, 95% of CEOs are males. We are constantly battling this disproportionality. And I feel like there's an element of strength and confidence. So really, being a leader is about purpose and aligning your purpose and values and meaning. And for me, that's really helped me. So I can speak from a personal level, and then looking at organizations, when I have worked with women and strong female leaders within organizations, again, it's about self-awareness and transforming people's attitudes, because it's sometimes it's about investing in yourself. Yes, I definitely agree with that. But sometimes it's about changing that work culture, that culture within the organization that thinks that, okay, you're just a woman. And for me, leadership is about the ability to focus on elevating others, and being humble, and it just enables you to unlock other people's potential as well as your own by promoting that. And that's what Net Women stand for. We talk about this all the time, about elevating other up, helping people up the ladder. And it's not about if you're at the top, then no one else is allowed up there. I think it's important that we keep building everybody up. So I think it's all about teamwork, and effective cooperation. How you do that, that's like a whole other topic. But Isabel, we can have a chat afterwards if you like.
Thank you so much, Pinky. So thank you so much for this session. Thank you to everybody who logged in. This is now recorded. It will be on YouTube. It's on our Women in Tech UK page as well. So feel free to go back and read it. And if you didn't have time to sort of see this live, but you know that a friend of yours or a colleague or, you know, somebody that you know in your network really, really wants to listen to Pinky's advice, then please do share the link, and continue to reach out to Pinky or to myself for Women in Tech UK if you've got any other questions or if there's anything else that potentially you want to explore a bit further. And we look forward to seeing you on the last Tuesday of this month for our first joint speed networking event.
Exciting. And I'll also share this on the Net Women platform as well.
Great. Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of day.